Hi, hello, and welcome to Explainwallah, an exclusive section launched by LearnStroke IAS classes by Arjun, and I am Arjun R Shankar. The whole world is now celebrating the 10th year of Belt and Road Initiative of China. What exactly is this? The world leaders are all visiting China and congratulating them for the impact that they have created in the world. So it is even referred to as the Silk Route, the modern Silk Route and the modern Marshall Plan. So what is the concept of Silk Route and Marshall Plan, and what is the economics of debt trap diplomacy of China, and it is what it is creating here, and what is the soybean diplomacy that it is creating in South America, and what is the ecological damage that the BRI has done, and what is going to be the future of BRI with India and United States of America in the line. Let's find out all the answers in this Explainwallah. So the Belt Road Initiative of China, it's not a new thing. As I said, it's more than 10 years and it was launched in 2013 by China. So why did China create this Belt and Road Initiative? You can just check out this map right now. And in this map, you can clearly see, look at the place, how China is operating from this. It goes through Asia, it goes through Africa, and it goes to Europe. So what exactly is this? So BRI, or the Belt and Road Initiative, was created with different objectives, and the most important objective that we can understand here is to have a global dominance. In this geopolitical system, just imagine the impact of China. So one is it's actually crisscrossing, transcending from Asia to Africa to Europe, was our issue, was a method or agenda to have a global dominance. That's number one. And number two that we can understand is the economics involved in that. Why the economical angle was brought in, which China is investing. Whatever routes that you have just seen in the map, China is investing, pumping a lot of money in building of economic or infrastructure projects in almost all these regions. And even a World Bank report said recently that the world is really facing deficits in terms of clean energy, water, infrastructure, and many aspects. And we need investments in all this regard. So look at and equate China in this regard. And you can clearly see China, whatever lines that you're seeing, China is creating infrastructure in most of these lands by creating large number of power plants, roads, railway lines, and ports, energy building. So this is something that they have been doing in all these regions and pumping a lot of money. So why is China pumping a lot of money in all these regions? So one is definitely all this will be open to the Chinese market also. All the avenues that they are creating in this region will automatically be open to the Chinese markets also. And number three that we are talking was the affiliation. When China, look at this area, when China goes through all these regions and creating infrastructure in almost many countries in this, we can see that China is creating a political affiliation. That means they are strengthening the diplomatic relationship between countries. When China is helping, these countries will definitely look up to China and listen to China because they are the saviors who are helping these places. So that is also an important thing. So global dominance, economy, and political affiliation that China is going to create in this region is a big thing regarding the Belt and Road Initiative. So in short, we can understand China is going to dominate the world. When you call Belt Road Initiative, what is this Belt and Road? So it means it's a combination or the belt of overland corridors and maritime roads of shipping lanes. So it's crisscrossing roads, corridors, shipping lanes, everything. And it's also called as the modern Silk Route and the Chinese Marshall Plan. So let's have a clarity on this. What is the concept of ancient Silk Route and Marshall Plan? So when you talk about the Silk Route, I think we should go back to the Han Dynasty of China. And it's very as old as that. And it does not mean that it was an actual route. It was an actual route or it was an actual road. It was a network of routes taken by different travelers to trade in goods and things from East Asia, the China, to Europe in those times. It was in 1877 when the German geographer and cartographer Ferdinand Richthofer clearly said that this is a Silk Route, which is actually denoting the exchange of goods from China to Europe. And you'll be very knowing that it was all silk was the most important thing that they used to take from China to Europe, creating a big amount of fund inflow to China. So this in turn became the Silk Route and the different routes that went from this to other places. And coming to the Marshall Plan, what exactly is the Marshall Plan? And if you want to understand the important concept of Marshall Plan, you should go back to the Second World War. Once the Second World War ended, you see that majority of the countries in Europe really struggled to redevelop themselves. And that was a time when everybody was also when seeing the growing influence of communism. So most often you can say the European countries, the southern and the western European nations were completely destroyed, and they could not redevelop, they could not reindustrialize themselves because they did not have the money or the financial sources for that. And that is a time when United States of America doled out almost $13 billion at that time to reinvent, reindustrialize the Western European countries. So that is when you pump in a lot of money to help them develop, was called as the Marshall Plan, named after Mr. Marshall. And this is why it is called Chinese Marshall Plan, because in the Belt and Road Initiative, China is exactly doing the same thing. China is trying to inject money and create economic development and industrialization in the areas from Asia to Europe. So this is why it is called the Marshall Plan and the modern Silk Route. Let's also look at the world countries and the nations and the world dynamics involved in this. You can see that right when you see from East Asia, Asia, Africa to Europe, you will see the Belt and Road is spread across these regions, and you will see that this region is more than half of the world's population and over a quarter of global GDP. So just imagine, more than 152 countries have signed this BRI cooperation. So when you have this kind of a dynamics, you see that China is extending its dominance in almost all these regions is something to be noted from an international perspective. And also look at the soybean diplomacy, because China was heavily dependent upon soybean from the United States. And you know that China is continuously in a tariff war with Washington. And that is the reason why with new BRI, it has reached out to Brazil, which is now furnishing them with the soybean supply that China wants. And again, Brazil has become a favorite of China with new BRI proposals. And take the case of oil, gas and petroleum products. You can see China was dependent on Japan, South Korea and United States of America. But with this new BRI proposals coming in, oil, gas pipelines in the Central Asia, Russia, and getting supplies from even Iraq, Oman and Brazil have all boosted China's dominance in this world countries. And not only that, many low-income countries which want to develop are all now depending on China, which you can see Mexico, Argentina, South Africa, Kenya and Nigeria are all favorite countries of BRI proposals. So this is in turn a global dynamics of how the world is actually getting dominated by China. Now let's understand the economics of debt trap diplomacy. China is often alleged that everybody needs finances and resources to sustain, and China in the recent last 10 years has become one of the largest international creditors. And so you can see a series of countries where you can see from Sri Lanka to Maldives to Laos to Kenya to Cambodia to Pakistan. You take any countries in these regions, you will see that they're all funded by Chinese, because they've all taken loans from Chinese, where Chinese people have injected money into this. So this is one thing called the debt trap diplomacy, is because they engage with the countries which needs money for various projects, and you lure them to take the money. Because you don't have money, you lure them to take money from Chinese people and even take collateral. You take a physical asset or you take a particular thing as a collateral, and you, just like the banks do, and they fund the money, and what happens is they push them into a debt trap. Just imagine Sri Lanka and Laos and Maldives, Kenya are all struggling to pay the money, the interest money to China. So this is also, they've almost funded to the tune of closely to $1 trillion has been funded into all this. So that also puts China in a tough spot because it is not getting, many of the countries are asking for debt restructuring. They are not able to pay back the money, but that has put a Chinese in a tough spot. But imagine, majority of these countries are now in a debt trap of China. You can also take a look at the Chinese investments and the split up of the industries that is actually shown on this figure, and you can see that energy, transport, metals and minings, other things includes like logistics. So you look at the important and close to $400 billion being funded. You can see this and see a split up of what are the areas that the China is actually investing. And let's also quickly look up to the ecological damage which the Belt and Road Initiative is creating. And it's without doubt, you can see when you compare Asian countries and even when you go up to Africa, you can see that the BRI, in which all areas it is going, has created a lot of damage, ecological damage to very ecologically sensitive areas. It has also posed destruction to various almost close to 1,000+ bird species, critically endangered animals, and even endangered species. Like it has created destruction of tigers and saiga antelopes. And when you look at the example, take an example of Indonesia, you can see the dam construction on Sumatra has even posed a risk to the Batang Toru, where you can see hundreds of orangutans in the jungles are also facing problems with the development in the Batang Toru. With the Mekong rivers, the dam in the Mekong River has also created problems for the fish species in the region. China has definitely dominated the world, and that is the reason why United States of America does not like this expansion. So ultimately, in a geopolitical sense, it is a race of countries to dominate the world. And that is the reason why you can also see alternatives like United States of America and Japan has created an alternative USA-Japan infrastructure programs as a countering measure to BRI. And India is also not behind this. In the G20 also, we have really thrusted towards the IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe corridors, which is also linking India to the Middle East, to the European regions, especially with the shippings and railway development. So India is also looking at alternates. When China dominates, India should also look at alternates, and United States is also looking at alternates. So in the days to come, let's really unravel. We will understand how the BRI is going to affect and dominate the whole world, and how is the world responding to this.